If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description. Welcome to MINDSHOCK True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire. Today we're taking a look at the perplexing Debbie Collier case. And this is a case that was all over the news, September 2022. And there are a lot of unanswered questions here, some chilling messages, various theories from all directions. It was requested multiple times on MindShock, so the dust hasn't really settled that much, but it's settled slightly since the initial media frenzy. So we can examine the details, theories here, and also law enforcement's investigation and things that supposedly don't add up, and different claims by different family members in typical MindShock fashion with logic and reason at the forefront. As always, if you enjoy the podcast, find it interesting and informative, want to help keep up awareness in missing persons cases, unsolved cold cases, wrongful convictions, and more, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications. You could also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube for access to exclusive streams and chats. Like and share the podcast, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. So let's examine a few different articles here. This is Fox News, Georgia's Debbie Collier case, timeline of events in burned office manager's slaying. Collier was found nude, burned, and grasping a tree down an embankment off Georgia Route 15 on September 11th. Now, some people, of course, the hardcore conspiracy theorists might want to tie in there September 11th, 9 and 11, of course, in numerology, and the date itself supposedly linked to some kind of demonic holidays, etc. We're not going to be going down those rabbit holes, or at least not yet. So this article written by Michael Ruiz, Fox News. Georgia real estate office manager Debbie Collier was last seen September 10th and found dead the next afternoon, 60 miles away from home after sending money and a cryptic note to her daughter, according to authorities. In the following weeks, police gave updates into the 59-year-old Athens woman's death, publicly identified no suspect or person of interest, and made no arrests. They served several search warrants, including one at the home of Collier's daughter, Amanda Bearden, 36, but police revealed nothing about the status of other warrants, subpoenas, and crime lab testing. Below is a timeline of events surrounding her death. The Family Dollar store in Clayton, Georgia, is the last known place Collier was seen alive. Deputies found the 59-year-old office manager stripped naked and partially burned in the woods off Route 15, September 11, 2022, about 13 miles south of the store. So on September 8th, Collier's daughter Bearden moves back to Georgia with her 27-year-old boyfriend, Andrew Geigerich, according to George Cason, the lead investigator on the case. Cason is the lead investigator on the case. Okay. They had been living with her brother Jeffrey, Collier's son, for an unspecified length of time. The couple has a history of arrests for domestic violence and other charges, including some that are drug-related, and when they moved back, they returned to the same Athens duplex where they lived before. September 10th. At 2:17 p.m., traffic cameras spot Collier's vehicle driving northbound Route 15 in Tallulah Falls, and she walks into a Family Dollar store in Clayton at 2:55, about 90 minutes north of her home in Athens. And law enforcement did provide images of the vehicle with the license plate, but I don't see the driver visible here, so make of that what you will. Collier is reported missing several hours later after sending her daughter $2,385 over the Venmo app and a cryptic message reading, quote, "They are not going to let me go," Love you, there is a key to the house in the blue flower pot by the door, end quote. And law enforcement, of course, has revealed the video of Collier in the Family Dollar store. And again, I can't help but bring up the notable difference here between law enforcement, who've been accused here of not revealing a lot of information. They're releasing traffic camera footage of the vehicle. They're releasing security store footage. I mean, compare this to something like the Maura Murray case, where they don't release anything. I mean, big difference. It is her last known stop before her death. Store cameras showed her entering wearing a number 34 Georgia Bulldogs jersey, and purchased several items that were found near her remains: a blue tarp, a red tote bag, paper towels, a torch lighter, and a poncho. And there's really nothing, I mean, from the video, she doesn't really seem that agitated. So some people theorize, of course, that she had some kind of mental episode. Again, not really visible here. Or if she's being stalked or threatened by other criminals. Again, not really visible here. So there's really not a lot that can be deduced from this. It is her last known stop before her death. Okay. Her daughter, Bearden, and husband, Stephen Collier, report her missing at 6:01 p.m. September 11th, Sirius XM radio contacts the Habersham County Sheriff's Office to alert deputies that a rented Chrysler Pacifica driven by a missing person has pinged in their jurisdiction. Driven by or registered to? Investigators find it around 12:30 p.m. parked on the northbound side of Georgia Route 15 in Clarksville, about 13 miles south of the Family Dollar store. The vehicle was unlocked and unoccupied, according to an incident report obtained by Fox News Digital. The scene is still an hour's drive away from where Collier lived in Athens, but her daughter, Amanda Bearden, arrives in a hysterical state, according to police documents. She tells investigators her mother did not suffer from any known mental health issues or suicidal tendencies. She had been given an approximate location of the vehicle by Athens Clarke County Police. A canine unit discovers Collier's remains down an embankment a quarter mile from the vehicle, nude and partially burned, with charring on her abdomen and her right hand clutching a tree. The incident report states she is obviously deceased, and investigators quickly identify her as the missing mom, Collier. Burned remnants of the tarp, paper towels, and tote bag are found nearby, as well as a charred base of a fallen tree. The Habersham County Coroner's Office transfers Collier's remains to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation's Crime Lab for an autopsy, and GBI also receives various items of possible evidence for enhanced analysis. September 14th, deputies serve a search warrant at Bearden's home 3 days after discovering her mother's remains. It is unclear what investigators found there, if anything. She lives there with her boyfriend, Geigerich, and the couple has a rocky relationship with numerous domestic violence calls over the past 3 years. Police logs obtained by Fox News Digital show it was one of several warrants served in connection with the investigation, but authorities have revealed few details and declined to release copies of the warrants, citing the active investigation. September 21st. The Habersham County Sheriff's Office reveals that investigators have found no evidence of either a suicide or a kidnapping. Detectives serve several search warrants and are looking to identify persons of interest. September 25th, Collier's son, Jeffrey Bearden, breaks his silence, praising his mother as a beloved matriarch filled with joy and beauty, and asking for the public to end speculation about the case and give detectives time to finish their investigation. Quote, "I am writing to request and privacy during the darkest and most harrowing time for my family," Bearden writes Fox News Digital. "I have been incredibly hurt and disturbed by some of the reporting and information shared regarding the investigation into my mother's death," end quote. Bearden, Collier's son, says that his mother was the kindest, greatest influence on his life, and asked for respect and privacy as his family deals with the traumatic news of her murder. "I will never be able to fully articulate the loss of my mother and what she meant to me," Bearden said. She was my longest source of love, support, and encouragement. My mother was very vibrant and strong soul. She was a person who valued kindness, empathy, and understanding throughout her life. She went through life recognizing the beauty and grace in everything she saw and experienced around her. September 27. Georgia detectives on Tuesday collected an unfired round near where a canine discovered the nude and partially burned remains of office manager Debbie Collier earlier this month. An unfired round is discovered near the crime scene off Route 15, and Geigerich separately tells Fox News Digital he and Bearden are living in fear, sleeping behind barricaded doors, and had nothing to do with Collier's unsolved slaying. We sleep with stuff in front of our front door and our back door because we didn't have anything to do with this, he says. We're a little scared ourselves. Fox News Digital also discovered an unfired round 20 to 30 yards uphill from the crime scene in a public area and immediately alert investigators. Detectives from the Habersham County Sheriff's Office arrive, and 15 minutes later they place it into a small evidence bag. Investigators say it could be unrelated. The area is part of the Chattahoochee-Oconee National Forest where she was found, but there were no clear signs that Collier had been shot. However, authorities suggest it could still be a clue that leads them closer to solving Collier's gruesome death. That's an important piece of evidence, and that's something one or more suspects could have dropped on the way out the door. Pat Diaz, a former Miami-Dade homicide detective with more than 30 years on the job, told Fox News Digital. He said investigators would be looking into the possibility that someone forced Collier downhill at gunpoint but used something else to kill her. It's not a recreational hunting ground that you would normally find in that area, he added. Now that's a good clue, because that was my first thought, was that, okay, there's unfired rounds in the Georgia wilderness. I mean, that's not really that unlikely. However, he's stating here that these are not recreational hunting rounds. September 29th, 4 911 calls obtained by Fox News Digital reveal details about the family's frantic search for Collier on September 10th and 11th. One caller, identifying herself as Collier's sister, Diane Shirley, made an alarming mention of a prior encounter with an unidentified ex-con driving a truck involved in a car crash with the slain woman. Collier's husband, Stephen Collier, also told the dispatcher that his stepdaughter, Amanda Bearden, found his wife's purse in the home. Her daughter also told police that she had her mom's iCloud details and asked them on Sunday morning why they hadn't been able to trace her mother's GPS. Why hasn't what I've asked been done? She says, her voice clearly emotional. Why isn't the GPS in her van being traced? Do I need a private detective to do that? Okay, wow. I'm going to interject here with just some early thoughts early on. Of course, this is MINDSHOCK. I'm not alleging anything is true or untrue. The people accusing the family, like, if they faked the Venmo transfer or whatever to make it look and the message, is it possible that they are involved in some kind of drugs and they did steal the money or whatever, but they had nothing to do with her death? Again, we don't fall for false dichotomies or black and white logical fallacies here. If this was a case of her getting some kind of accident, but why was she all the way out there? Or was she involved in some other kind of dealings, and then her death was unrelated to the dealings that she was there for? September 30th. The Habersham County Sheriff's Office holds its first public briefing on the case, and investigators reveal Collier's brutal slaying was personal and targeted, and likely not the act of a random serial killer or self-inflicted. Investigators also say that they recovered her purse and cell phone at the crime scene. So how many purses and cell phones did she have? An arrest in the case is still a ways off, Kogut says, as investigators continue to await the results of crime lab testing and several outstanding warrants and subpoenas. No person of interest or suspect is identified, but clearly they're doing some kind of work. There's a lot of unanswered questions here. So, of course, people are speculating that that message was definitely not sent by Collier, especially regarding why would she be mentioning the key in the flower pot, because that seems like something that close family, especially her daughter, would already know, unless we're adding in some kind of mental health episode, in which, of course, perhaps without thinking clearly, who knows what she might write. So, some interesting coincidences here, if true. So, supposedly, her daughter was kicked out of the house that she was living in, her brother's house, the day before. So, she was staying in a tent. So, some people are speculating that she was buying that stuff for her daughter and the boyfriend that were staying in the woods. Some people speculate that they lured her there. Now, some possible alternatives for this theory, because again, if law enforcement haven't revealed the exact details of her cell phone location, but it was stated that she was sitting in the parking lot for 9 minutes after leaving the Family Dollar, and supposedly the Venmo was sent during that time, in which case, if the phone was on her, and that is definitively proven, then that would seem that she did in fact send that Venmo. So another interesting article here, Fox News again, Michael Ruiz. Debbie Collier spotted with purse and keys, despite the claim that she left with only ID and debit card, as mystery deepens. Collier was said to have left with just her ID and a debit card, but surveillance images tell a different story. Georgia investigators released surveillance video showing what may have been office manager Debbie Collier's last appearance in public alive before a brutal killing earlier this month, immediately raising questions about the missing persons report. The video shows Collier entered a Family Dollar store in Clayton around 2:55 p.m. September 10th wearing a University of Georgia football jersey, shorts, and a red visor while carrying a large black purse and her car keys. It was game day in Athens, and the Bulldogs were scheduled to kick off at 4 p.m., hosting Samford, who they eventually routed 33-0. However, Collier may not have been alive by the end of the game. Was she planning to go to the game? In the missing person report filed several hours later, Collier's 36-year-old daughter, Amanda Bearden, told police that she had received a suspicious Venmo payment and that her mother had left everything but her ID and debit card behind. I mean, why would they be reporting that if they were the ones that received the payment, unless they thought that would make them look less guilty? If they were, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. 8 minutes after Collier left the store at 3:17 p.m., the Venmo account Collier shares with her husband Steve sent Bearden a $2,385 payment, according to police reports. Amanda also informed that her mother did not take anything with her but her driver's license and debit card, reads a missing persons report filed on September 10th with the Athens-Clarke County Police Department. At the Family Dollar store more than 70 miles north of her home in Athens, Collier bought a poncho, a torch lighter, a pack of paper towels, and a blue tarp, then paid with a card, leaving behind her receipt, the video shows. The Habersham County Sheriff's Office on Monday revealed an updated timeline based on a visit to the store and the discovery of her vehicle the following afternoon. This information allows investigators to narrow the time of death to a window beginning at 3:09 p.m. on Saturday, September 10th, to the discovery of her body Sunday, September 11th at 12:44 p.m., said Colonel Mark Kogod, the department's public information officer. The Venmo payment was Collier's last known communication, according to authorities, and included a cryptic message reading, quote, "They are not going to let me go. Love you. There is a key to the house in the blue flower pot by the door," end quote. Crime scene evidence and other items of forensic value were sent to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation for further testing. However, investigators have not yet revealed what they found. Bearden has not responded to multiple attempts to reach her from Fox News Digital. The Family Dollar store is about a 15-minute drive north from where deputies found Collier's abandoned Chrysler Pacifica rental vehicle on September 11th off Georgia Route 15. A Habersham County canine unit found her about a quarter-mile off the road, down an embankment where she had been stripped nude and partially burned. The incident report reveals she had been found on her back, clutching at a small tree with one hand, and that investigators recovered some of the items that she had purchased at Family Dollar nearby. Those included the tarp, which also had burn marks on it, and the red tote bag. Investigators quickly deemed the manner of her death a homicide, but have not yet revealed what caused it. They said last week they had ruled out a potential kidnapping. They have not publicly named a suspect or person of interest. How exactly do you rule out a potential kidnapping? Are they saying, so if they went through her phone, if they went through phone records for records of any communications and they found none, are they saying that's evidence that she wasn't kidnapped? So some people are floating the theory that her mother was going to pay off her daughter's drug dealer debt or whatnot. But that doesn't really explain the purchase of those items, and that doesn't explain a lot of things. But theoretically, if someone is, let's say, threatening your family and scared you to the point of not going to the police, would you do their bidding? And just because there was no evidence found of communication between them, that doesn't necessarily... What does kidnapping exactly mean? If they just gave her instructions of some kind and she followed them, what does that mean? Another interesting theory here in the comments of the Fox News articles, my hunch, these items could also be used for tailgating, picnicking, barbecuing, etc. Maybe she was duped into buying those things by someone thinking she was going to enjoy an afternoon watching the game outside somewhere. A response here, true, it was cloudy and some risk of rain popping up. My guess, she had no idea anything was out of the ordinary while in the Family Dollar. Huh. Another response here. So there are some interesting details to note here. This particular day was cloudy with periods of rain, thus the poncho and tarp, meaning she was planning to be outside. Clayton is 1.5 hour drive to Athens where the game was being played. Since it was going to start at 4, and she is in Clayton at 3:09, she's obviously not going to the game. So this sounds like she was going to tailgate for the game. Tallulah Gorge State Park is about 2 miles from the location of the body and the probable location of the planned tailgate. I'm going to speculate that daughter and probably boyfriend set her up and committed the crime. By leaving her vehicle, the other two would have had to have a car to leave of their own to leave with. I mean, I don't know about that speculation, but regarding the tailgating and the tailgate location, that is interesting. So here's some interesting statements. So from FoxCarolina.com, Debbie Collier's death. Daughter says her mom took her own life. Police have still not revealed the cause of death in a case that has captured the nation's attention. Also, keep in mind, law enforcement stated clearly that it was a homicide. And they have not revealed the details of the death, but for whatever reason, they believe it's a homicide and are proceeding as such. And her daughter is stating here that she believes that her mom took her own life. Now, keep in mind, during the missing persons report, she was stating her mom was not suicidal, nor any history of mental health issues. So, quite the flip here. This was posted November 10th, 2022 by Tim Darnell. The daughter of Debbie Collier, the Athens woman whose mysterious death and disappearance has captured the nation's attention, said this week she believes her mother took her own life. Appearing during a YouTube livestream of the Crime on the Record podcast, Amanda Bearden said her mother had begun giving me all of her things and had taken the whole week off before she disappeared. No one saw her on Friday before Collier disappeared, Bearden said during the Wednesday evening podcast. She recounted there were actions Collier took. Looking back now, seems weird to Bearden. She was dealing with stuff that she didn't want to burden me with, Bearden said. The podcast was the first time Bearden has publicly said she believes her mom committed suicide. Is it possible also that her mom just met somebody, possibly a shady individual, possibly not, and that's why she just was enjoying spending time with them, tailgating plans, etc., took time off of work for this? I mean, again, just throwing out theories here. I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue. Collier was first reported missing at 6 p.m. September 10th, 2022 by her husband, Stephen Collier. Hours earlier, Collier sent $2,385 to Bearden on Venmo with a message: "They are not going to let me go. Love you. Love you. There is a key to the house in the blue flower pot by the door." Bearden said she did not speak with her mother on that Saturday. Collier was last seen on surveillance video in a Clayton Family Dollar store where she purchased a rain poncho, refillable torch lighter, a 2-roll pack of paper towels, a 7.5 by 9.5 OBD tarp, and a reusable tote bag. After leaving the Rabun County store at 3:09 p.m., she remained in her vehicle, apparently alone, for 10 minutes before leaving. Apparently alone. That's interesting phrasing there. Collier's body was found around 3 p.m. the next day after her rented black Chrysler Pacifica van was found at the entrance of an old logging road in Habersham County. Also, I don't know if I went over this detail in the previous article, but supposedly there was a freshly cut tree nearby as well. So that opens the door to further speculation. Habersham County investigators have released 3 911 calls that reported Collier missing. The first call reporting Collier missing came from her husband, Stephen, around 6 p.m. September 10th. The second call is from Bearden, who was calling police to offer some information on her mother's disappearance. The third came from Collier's sister, Diane Shirley, who lives in Alabama. Habersham County investigators initially said they believe Collier's death was a deliberate act and not random. But Jeffrey Bearden, Collier's son, has since told Atlanta News First that he has little confidence in the Habersham County Sheriff's Office and is filing a formal complaint to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation over the local agency's handling of the case. No arrests have been made so far, and police have not released the cause of death. The FBI has joined the investigation into Collier's death. So according to this article, dated November 10th. So as of November 10th, 2022, the FBI has joined the case. Now, would they do that if this was a clear suicide? So there seems to be some kind of evidence of homicide that's quite definitive, or at least definitive enough to have the FBI joining here. Now, the daughter did a 180 on the suicide angle. The son is filing complaints against law enforcement. So that's interesting. Another article here on AtlantaNewsFirst.com. Debbie Collier's son calls for sheriff to resign and GBI to handle investigation. Concerned over recent conflicting reports citing law enforcement sources, Bearden called Habersham County Sheriff Joey Terrell last Wednesday. This article, written November 1st, 2022, by Zach Summers. The son of an Athens woman found dead in Habersham County in September is calling for the sheriff to resign and another agency to take over the investigation. Jeffrey Bearden, the son of Debbie Collier, tells Atlanta News First that he has little confidence in the Habersham County Sheriff's Office. Quote, "Terrible, absolutely terrible," he said about the handling of the investigation thus far. "We're learning more about my mother's case through the media than from law enforcement directly," end quote. There are a lot of people I have questions for in Habersham County, and I think there's a lot of things that need looking into, Bearden said. Concerned over recent conflicting reports citing law enforcement sources, Bearden called Habersham County Sheriff Joey Terrell last Wednesday to ask for an update and address any potential leaks. "I said, these are leaks," Bearden recalled. "These are things. What is your policy? What can you do? What actions can you take if these leaks are coming out of your office? I was pushing for what is the corrective action." Bearden described his conversation with Sheriff Terrell as jarring and heartbreaking. He said Sheriff Terrell denied any leaks and snickered when he raised concerns over his family's safety throughout the investigation. "To be honest with you, it emotionally broke me to have a sheriff who's overseeing my mother's homicide investigation laugh," Bearden said. "I almost wanted to ask him, if this was your mother, would you not be fighting just as hard and feeling just as emotional?" On Tuesday, the Habersham County Sheriff's Office released the following statement to Atlanta News First. We are certainly sympathetic to the emotional tension that the extended period of time taken to investigate such a complex and unique case causes a family seeking answers. We can assure you that Sheriff Terrell, as well as all involved members of the Sheriff's Office, have nothing but respect and understanding toward the family, and that any misunderstandings regarding discussions related to this case are nothing more than just that, a misunderstanding. However, at the same time, it is incumbent on us to exhaust every theory of what happened and to derive at a finding that is based on facts and evidence rather than speculation and rumor. As stated several times in the past, the scene involved in the case resulted in more questions than answers. As soon as all requested information has been received, analyzed, and evaluated, the Sheriff's Office will provide a complete statement regarding the findings of this investigation. If it was a misunderstanding, is there a reason I haven't heard back from him in almost a week now? Bearden reacted. It's just disgusting. Bearden said he filed a complaint with the Habersham County Sheriff's Office following his exchange with the sheriff, who he wants to resign and issue a public apology. Bearden also said he's in the process of filing a formal complaint about the exchange to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, the agency he would prefer to handle the case moving forward. I just want a fair and transparent investigation, Bearden said, and I do not ever want another family to have to engage with an officer who clearly lacks the ability to empathize with a homicide victim's family. So, yeah, I mean, that's heartbreaking on a whole nother level. But, yeah, the FBI has since joined the investigation in some capacity. So, that is interesting indeed. Another interesting detail from 11 Alive, supposedly it's stating that the report filed by her daughter and husband, the missing persons report, or another report here, that it might be a case of violent kidnapping, but then since then, law enforcement has said there's no evidence of kidnapping, but supposedly still a homicide. Alright, so let's go to PerezHilton.com, a highly credible source, of course. There's a quote here. I don't know where he got this information or if it's legitimate or not. Again, I'm not claiming it is or it is not. He's claiming that law enforcement revealed this information, that Amanda's boyfriend, Andrew Geigerich, had a strange connection to the case. He got into some legal trouble in the past and owed police a hefty sum of probation fines. The amount he owed, per this report, is eerily close to the $2,385 his girlfriend's mom sent to her daughter before she was found dead. That's an interesting curiosity, if true. I mean, it's kind of hard to ignore that, not to mention the timeline that her and her boyfriend were kicked out of the brother's home the day before. Commenters here are stating that the boyfriend and the daughter got the mother to buy these items under a pretext. If we go back to the earlier theories, was the pretext some kind of tailgating? Now, a guest here commented on this Perez Hilton article. A couple of the details in your reporting are incorrect. The probation fees and fines owed by Mr. Geigerich are only $700 and change. Okay, so yes, that is less suspicious then. Because if it was close to the exact amount sent, I mean, that would be because, again, I don't have verification of these numbers, though, so... Also, some interesting discussion on web sleuths regarding suicides by fire or self-immolation. Some stats here. 87% of women's suicides are firearms, drug overdoses, and hanging or smothering. A fraction of 1%, so less than 1%, are self-immolation, and nearly all of those are from Far East backgrounds. So basically, the chances of an American woman setting herself on fire as a way to commit suicide are incredibly remote. Another interesting theory also being discussed on web sleuths is she accidentally set herself on fire while setting up the tarp. And then she ran and fell and died. But that still leaves the problem of... why was she there in the first place? Was she meeting someone there and they apparently have never come forward? Also, supposedly her phone... The phone looks... Again, these are comments here. I don't know if this information has been released. The phone looked like it was intentionally smashed and damaged and not dropped accidentally. So in which case, if she was meeting someone there, if this was an accident and then someone came there and stumbled that was supposed to be meeting her, let's say maybe they have a criminal history or whatever, they thought they'd be blamed for it, would they smash the phone? I mean, I don't know. None of this really makes a lot of sense. An interesting post by Scheffner on the Web Sleuths thread. It's been told that Debbie spent the previous day having lunch with her daughter and her daughter's boyfriend. Then she had dinner with her daughter and they ran some errands, after which they departed for their homes in separate cars. Debbie's husband Steve said they were in bed around 9 p.m. They sleep in separate rooms due to Steve's snoring, so no one knows if Debbie went right to sleep or stayed awake within her room. Neighbors also communicated there was a loud commotion at the Colliers' home on that Friday night. They said they heard screaming from a young woman at the home. This is, of course, all disputed. I mean, there's a lot of odd coincidences here, too. The daughter's getting kicked out from the brother's home, and there's some kind of screaming and fighting at the home the night before she goes missing. If that's true. New York Post, actually, the source here is the New York Post. So it's not a random rumor. This is by Ben Kesslin, published September 21st, 2022. Neighbor heard commotion at murdered Georgia mom Debbie Collier's house the night before she vanished. There was commotion at the house, a neighbor told the Post, of the Friday night before Debbie disappeared, noting she frequently heard shouting from Collier's home atop a small wooded hill in Athens. That was my next question, is how often does that happen? If that happens often, might not be connected then. The neighbor added, somebody comes up to visit on the weekends and in the evenings and there's loud screaming and fighting, says the visitor was a young woman. The victim's husband, Steve Collier, told investigators he last saw his wife at 9 p.m. on Saturday and her car was still in the driveway when he left for work the following morning. He told investigators he slept separately from his wife because he snored and that he didn't see her before she went missing, according to the Daily Mail. When approached by the Post, Steve declined to speak. One friend of the Colliers declined to comment after answering the door of her home, but cryptically said, quote, "There's a reason we are keeping quiet," end quote. Another neighbor in Athens, Ricky, said Debbie and her husband were reclusive people who didn't mingle with others on the street. When we would get together out here on the block for a cookout, they never participated, he said, saying many locals don't even know their names. They didn't come to no get-togethers. As far as I can tell, they've lived here a good little while, he said, noting that he's been on the same block for decades. I mean, yeah, interesting details. Interesting details indeed. So the timeline of the events, I mean, it is a little curious. The daughter gets kicked out of the brother's place, and then she moves in with her mother. And then there's arguing. Okay, let's go to another article here, New York Post. Debbie Collier murder. Who is the trucker mentioned in a 911 call, by Michael Ruiz as well, October 4th, 2022. More than 3 weeks after the brutal death of Georgia office manager Debbie Collier, investigators have still not publicly identified a suspect or person of interest in the case. Detectives were still waiting results for the state crime lab, the Habersham County Sheriff's Office said during a Friday news briefing, and cracking the case could take some more time, Colonel Murray Kogod, the public information officer, told reporters. One potential lead from early 911 calls, which Fox News Digital was first to report last week, appears to be an exaggeration. One caller, identifying herself as Collier's sister, Diane Shirley, that's an interesting phrasing, so they didn't verify it was her, made an alarming mention of a prior encounter with an unidentified ex-con driving a truck involved in a car crash with the slain woman. A story that Shirley said She overheard from Collier's daughter, Amanda Bearden, whose home police searched early in the investigation. From my niece, she said that Collier was in an accident about a month ago, Shirley told a dispatcher. Collier was driving behind a truck and when a paint can fell off and struck her car, she says on the call. The paint went everywhere and the driver was trying to convince my sister not to tell the cops that he was driving because he was out on parole, Shirley says, and there was a stipulation to his parole that he could not drive. Athens Clarke County Police records show Collier was involved in a similar accident on April 30th, 4 months ago. A metal item fell off the roof of a 2009 GMC Savannah van and slammed into the driver's side front end of the Collier's 2020 Ford Ranger, causing an accident according to the incident report. No one was injured. Police cited Miguel Martinez, 48, for allegedly driving without a license and operating a vehicle without securing the load. Although Martinez faced a slew of misdemeanors after allegedly pulling his ex's hair while she was holding their child in early 2015, sending both of them tumbling to the ground, he does not appear to be part of Georgia's parole system. Most of the charges were dismissed in a plea deal in which he admitted to 2 counts of disorderly conduct. He was sentenced to 12 months of probation and would have been off 6 years before his accident with Collier. Search and Georgia records found no evidence that he had ever been found guilty of a felony, sent to prison, or been paroled. Collier had last been seen on Saturday, September 10th. After sending her daughter $2,385 over the Venmo app and a cryptic message reading, "They are not going to let me go. Love you, there's a key to the house in the blue flower pot by the door." The Venmo payment came in at 3:17 p.m., 8 minutes after Collier left a Family Dollar store in Clayton, about 90 minutes north of her home in Athens. Collier was seen on camera there carrying a purse and buying several items which were found near her body. She paid with a credit card, the video shows. Other documents obtained by Fox News Digital on Thursday reveal additional details about her last known movements. Collier's phone was turned off after 3:17 p.m. on September 10th, the same time she sent the Venmo payment. The phone's last ping came at that time about 2.5 miles from a cell tower in Clayton. So she turned her phone off right after? Huh. If that was in fact her. Did they verify she was alone in the vehicle? The Habersham County Sheriff's Office says her time of death occurred sometime in between leaving the store at 3:09 p.m. and when they discovered her remains the following day at 12:30 p.m. There's also another article here on nowhabersham.com. Sources tell New Habersham the message was sent, regarding the message to Amanda Bearden, was sent during the time that Collier is known to have been sitting in her rented van in the parking lot of a Family Dollar store in Clayton. She also reportedly sent a text to her son saying, "I love you," but that text, later found in subpoenaed phone records, didn't go through. Shortly after the messages were sent, Saturday, September 10th, Collier's phone went silent. Also states here, the state medical examiner has not released a final autopsy report, but sources tell New Habersham it appears Debbie Collier may have died from suffocation as a result of a fire that she herself may have started. Her injuries were consistent with those of someone caught in a flash fire, possibly caused by gasoline vapors igniting. An arson analysis confirmed the presence of gasoline on her clothes. While investigators knew from the outset that an accelerant was used, the absence of a gas container at the scene caused them to suspect someone else was present and remove the container. After conducting an experiment, investigators confirmed a plastic container could have melted in the fire. It was at that point, weeks into the case, that detectives returned to the scene where Collier's body was found and recovered what appeared to be the burned remnants of a gas can. I mean, this looks like some shoddy detective work, because if the gas can that started the fire was there the whole time and they just happened not to get it the first time? Awaiting official cause of death and manner of death, Collier appears to have initially survived the fire, which charred her lap and abdomen and apparently burned off the Georgia Bulldog jersey she was wearing. She was found grasping a small tree in her hand as if she had grabbed onto it to keep from falling. The items she bought at the Family Dollar store were found near the partially nude, burned body. The QR code on a burned blue tarp is what led investigators to the Family Dollar store. That discovery ultimately led to the surveillance video with the last known image of Debbie Collier alive. But if her phone was on the whole time, I mean, how were they not able to find her? Whether her death was accidental or intentional remains to be seen. Officials have not released the results of her autopsy. So again, this is information coming from alleged sources, so we have no way of knowing the true veracity of these claims. Also, another inconsistency here, we're going to True Crime Discussion subreddit right now. 11 Alive reported that Debbie's car was spotted in the location where it was found the day prior. No other source says this that is linked here anyway. There's a question here I didn't see either. Why would Debbie tell Amanda the location of a key to the house when her husband is still alive and would have access? I mean, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, obviously, the husband lives there. He would know. Yeah, that's crazy. Huh. Other people are also putting some speculation on the neighbors for making the comments about the commotion and the screaming. Perhaps there wasn't commotion and screaming. And that's a diversion of some kind. So a post here by White Wolf S. Another interesting detail I noted was that in an interview with the boyfriend, it said that they had recently moved back from Maryland. And on her Facebook profile, it says she's a manager at a Habitat for Humanity in Maryland. The boyfriend said something along the lines of, "We moved back Thursday. She bought us lunch Friday and went missing Saturday." It was in the post, I believe, so grain of salt, but that points even more to the daughter and boyfriend being involved. Or not necessarily, or they were the catalyst of something. So they triggered something that ultimately led to this. Doesn't mean necessarily they're responsible, but it is coincidental that the way the timeline is lining up here. In my opinion, it would be an odd coincidence for the husband to murder her right after the daughter gets back in town, unless they are all involved. I'm not ruling out the husband's involvement. His alibi sounds fake as hell. In bed by 9, slept like a rock, but the neighbors hear yelling. Yeah, okay. Also, agree with previous comment that even couples who have if he's older, I mean, old people tend to sleep through screaming easily. Even couples who have separate rooms tend to share other areas like a master bath and closets. My parents have this arrangement, so I'm not seeing her at all when leaving for work in the morning also rings false. This is, unless, of course, what are her normal hours of sleeping and he didn't want to disturb her. This is a local case to me, so I'm extra interested in how it plays out. I think we will see an arrest sooner rather than later. This is the work of amateurs, and they've left lots of evidence. Post by user since deleted regarding the neighbors or friends who aren't talking. Maybe they are worried about repercussions, especially if the daughter maybe hangs out with some nasty people. They maybe don't want to speak publicly about what they've told police for that reason. Okay, so let's actually go back to the pure statistics. When a female is met with foul play, it's usually at the hands of someone known to her. Let's say it wasn't the daughter or her boyfriend. Is it possibly people that they know? Like, what set off this event? Like, they get back in town and then the next day she goes missing. I mean, there's a lot of weirdness here. This is a long string of coincidences. A post here by Leprechaun112. I wish there were more that they would release about the autopsy. It would be interesting to know the percentage of burns on her body. If I had to venture a guess, chances are her daughter was caught with oxycodone, Vicodin, or fentanyl, and this is just her reporting that her mother had a bad back. As for what she was carrying, my wife and I never use cash and keep all of our cards in our phone case, because if she did not have her phone, she would have had to have a tablet or laptop in the car, both needing internet. If I were to see this, I would believe the red tote was her purse, and that was what caused the burns to her abdomen. If her daughter was in debt to someone bad, could that have been the reason for all the fighting? She was begging her mother for money to pay them off. If her daughter does have past drug issues, that could be the reason Steven is on a Venmo account. That would allow them to see the amount of money that was being sent from the account. Was there someone she was meeting to pay off so that they did not harm her daughter? That would explain the cryptic message, and the odd amount could have been her emptying her Venmo account into her daughter's. Maybe it was supposed to be her daughter there. As for the screaming, I cannot say that I would dismiss it, but the neighbors thought my wife and I were always fighting. One of the neighbors approached her about it, and she laughed. I am hard of hearing and refuse to Bluetooth my hearing aids to the TV, so have been watching horror movies and playing PS5. They must have thought I was trying to murder her. It would be interesting on the part of sleeping apart just due to the snoring. I am a horrible snorer, and my wife has threatened to kick me to the couch, but there are medical ways to stop snoring. My wife and I have separate rooms due to my PTSD and me lashing out in my sleep. So, interesting comment there by Leprechaun112. Yeah, a lot of possibilities here. It's hard to write off the coincidences. Apparently, Perez Hilton has the same sources as Fox News Digital. So this on thesun.com, they're claiming Fox News Digital said two police sources were the ones who said that Bearden's partner, Andrew Geigerich, owed very, quote, very close, end quote, in terms of how the amount of money in probation fines to the cent amount. So I don't know where the $700 came from, but apparently two different police sources. Huh. Also, Geigerich is supposedly an ex-amateur MMA fighter. I don't know what that means. Also, Collier's husband, Stephen, was on video working between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. on September 10th. And then, of course, there's the unfired bullet near the scene. So, yeah, there's a lot of questions here, not a lot of answers as of yet. So Steve Collier was working at the stadium of the nearby Georgia Bulldogs, helping to park cars. Huh. So that's it for now in this highly perplexing case, but apparently there is a lot of evidence. So, and with the FBI now on board, I mean, it's kind of unclear in what capacity, but at least that's something. So it seems, I mean, this really should be solved because there's just so much evidence here. It's tough. I mean, it's if they hadn't found the body or even the vehicle, or maybe the vehicle and not the body, then that and all those items, and that would be a lot tougher, but still probably solvable in this modern digital age. Yeah, there's just so many questions here. So obviously all the MindShock listeners can chime in with their thoughts, theories, rebuttals, debunkings, opinions of any kind in the comment section. If you find the podcast interesting and informative, you can donate to our PayPal, help support the MindShock podcast and logical examinations of cases, and keep an awareness up in all of these cases. You could also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Make sure you like and share the podcast, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.